Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, the author of The Captivating Public Speaker, Peter George.
Have you ever questioned your own qualifications for doing something? For instance, have you ever asked yourself, who am I to be standing on this stage speaking about this topic? Or, will the audience see that I'm not the expert when it comes to this subject? Or perhaps, should I be the one leading this group? If so, you may be experiencing imposter syndrome, and you're not alone. In fact, you're in the majority. In this episode, Sheryl Anjanette, author of The Impostor Lies Within, explains why imposter syndrome is so prevalent and how you can deal with it so it no longer holds you back or weighs on your mind. Sheryl is an author, international speaker, thought leader, and trainer on the topics of imposter syndrome, burnout, and peak performance. As a natural extension of her 30-year career as an entrepreneur, marketing and communications executive, in her wellness practice, Sheryl has dedicated her business to helping individuals and organizations overcome the debilitating effects of imposter syndrome. Here's my conversation. Hi, Sheryl. It's great to have you with us today. Anjanette.
Oh, my goodness, Peter. So good to be here.
Sheryl, we're going to discuss imposter syndrome, a topic that's near and dear to me because many speakers struggle with it, and so do I. So to begin, what is imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that because I think there are a lot of misunderstandings about what it is. So very simply, it's a psychological pattern, and I want you to put the emphasis on the word pattern, where someone feels like they're not good enough in spite of their accomplishments. So it's patterned because not just our habits or our behaviors get patterned, but our thoughts and our beliefs and our self-talk also get patterned. So it's a psychological pattern. And because there's a disconnect between our actual accomplishments and how we feel about them. So for example, a lot of people will say, and this is one of the myths I talk about in my book, but a lot of people will say, well, you can't have imposter syndrome if you're not an imposter. And that's just a misunderstanding of what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome doesn't mean you're actually an imposter. It doesn't mean that other people think you're an imposter. It's that we feel like we're an imposter. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense because I've dealt with that most of my life. I've been very fortunate with my business endeavors. Yet I think, well, who am I to be doing this? Then even after it's successful, Sheryl, I still almost doubt it and say, well, who was I to be that successful? I just grew up in a low-income family, and who am I to have these successes? And even when I wrote my book, which was published 4 months ago when we're recording this, and it's been extremely successful right out of the gate, it was, who am I to be writing this book?
It's crazy because a lot of people, and this just kind of gets to another myth, a lot of people think that imposter syndrome is just what you experience when you're a beginner, but actually it's really something you experience once you've become quite accomplished. So you can experience levels of it as you're gaining confidence. That's certainly true. But you'll notice that it was 70% of people identified with imposter syndrome before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, it's something like 85%. It's quite pervasive.
That's quite a jump.
It's quite a jump, but it's also, if you think about it, 85% of people. And what's so interesting, there's so much to this, is that it's not just for beginners. And, when we get a little further into the podcast, I'm going to tell you a little bit about something I call the healthy zone and why being a beginner and having some of these doubts early on is just a healthy, normal part of that process. It doesn't indicate necessarily imposter syndrome. But back to the 70 to 85%, here's what happens, right, Peter, is people will feel like they're alone in it. we suppress our emotions. We suppress that not good enough. I don't want anyone to know. We put on our confidence cloak. We learn pretty quickly how to show up and how other people are going to react to us and what to say and how to give the right eye contact and shake hands and look the part. But we've suppressed these uncomfortable emotions of not good enough, not worthy, not deserving. My voice doesn't matter. I don't matter. Who am I to be doing this? We just suppress it, suppress it, suppress it, right? So we tend to feel very alone in the whole experience. And then we learn, oh my goodness, it feels like a vast majority of people are experiencing what I am. So now the pendulum shifts, right? Now the pendulum swings. It goes from one extreme to I'm the only one to, whew, everybody has it. And that must mean that, it's just normal. Everyone has it. You're going to have it. I'm going to have it. And that's a problem to say have it. It's almost like we choose to put it in as part of our identity. So if you're listening, don't choose that. Don't choose that as your identity. And please don't normalize this. It's, unless you really are okay with just living with these feelings, if you're okay and you've just said, I'm just going to live with this. This is how I'm going to live. That's your choice. But I encourage people, don't normalize this because you can actually get past it. You don't have to have these feelings of not good enough, not worthy, not deserving. So you said, and I just want to come back to this because I picked up on it very quickly. You said you talked about your own experiences, your great successes, very recent success, for example, with your book, but even going back that you always feel like, ooh, is this going to be good enough? The doubt before. And then even when it is, ooh, and kind of that voice in our head that says, who am I to be doing this, right? And then after it's like, oh, it was a success, but you don't quite believe it and you still doubt it and you still feel like this is the feeling, this is the experience is, oh my God, they're going to find out. They're going to find out. They're going to discover I'm not as good as they thought I was, or I'm going to be unmasked. They're going to see that I'm just a fraud. That's where the word comes from, because we feel like that. We feel like that. So when I'm listening to you, and somebody that's listening might relate to this, you said, I still think of myself as just a kid from a low-income family, or I'm just this person. Let's take that just word out. That really goes back to beliefs, right? It comes from that childhood. We're just emotional beings. We're just squishy emotional beings. Our whole prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that is our consequential thinking and is our logic and our reason, isn't even developed. We're just all a bundle of emotions. And when we feel something, we don't even have a vocabulary to express it. So we repress it, we hold it in. I might have an experience and I might feel like I'm not good enough. And my mind is always, our mind is wired this way, by the way. Our minds are always looking for evidence that we're right. Our mind wants to make us right. So if I start to have a belief, I'm going to look for the evidence. And as I'm looking for the evidence, I'm filtering out other evidence that might show itself that might prove me wrong because I want to be right. So as it layers, that becomes stronger and stronger. Initially, maybe it's like, I'm not good enough. Something else comes in. Oh, I really am good enough. And you can go towards the positive, but the mind is also weighted to the negative. That's part of our limbic system, our protection. So our primitive brain kind of wants to make sure there's no threat or danger. So our mind is kind of wired to look for the negative. So if that negative gets enough weight, we start to just filter out the good stuff and we just kind of hone in on that. I'm not good enough, or I try to speak up and no one pays attention to me. They brush me aside, so my voice doesn't matter. Or as a woman, for example, all the boys are getting all the attention from the family and they're the smart ones and I don't matter. Or I'm the little one, or somewhere in the, family, there's a big family maybe, or there's a sibling that's ill and needs more attention. So I don't matter. Why would I matter? So all these things are very part and parcel to a unique experience, but they're universal in that these feelings come up and they layer and they layer and they get suppressed. It's not our beliefs, it's even below our beliefs. It's our experiences that we have and the meaning we give that experience at that age and at that stage. Think about that. So I'm not born with beliefs.
Right.
I'm born like a clean slate. And I come in and I have experiences and I hear other people's beliefs. And if it's somebody that matters to me, like mommy or daddy, big person that's part of my nurture world or safety world, I'm going to start taking on their beliefs, like my beliefs. We mimic, we learn, that's how we learn. And so part of it is I'm taking on other people's beliefs. Part of it is I'm having experiences and I have this little interpretation in my mind of worthiness or all this, who am I?
Where I've been fortunate is I had a tremendous childhood, just a wonderful childhood. I had great parents who were best friends, great role models, strong people, and I was pretty proficient in sports growing up. Sports were the thing that kept me from being picked on with a stutter. So I strived at sports, and I was the guy who wanted to be the last batter with 2 outs in the ninth and winning run on second. I didn't shy away from the limelight. My father taught me a great skill, which is when you're in athletics, you have to have a short memory. You make a mistake, you get right back and continue to play. And that's the way I've been throughout my life. I've been very fortunate that way, and I haven't let it stop me in life. It's always been there. It's never left, but I've never let it stop me, at least as far as I can remember. Are there real costs to letting it stop you for those who do?
Well, first of all, I want to let me touch on that, but let me also touch on this idea of feel the fear and do it anyway. That was your show up, right?
Yeah.
Show up memory, you call it. And mistakes are simply missed takes. You iterate to great, you just keep going. Those are all very powerful learned behaviors and mindset tricks that are wonderful. It's this idea of we all have fear. It's wired into us. We're going to all have fear. So you feel your fear, you do it anyway, you move through because we push through that comfort zone. Otherwise we wouldn't go anywhere. So people will say, and this is another myth I want to pull out because we keep kind of inadvertently coming up with these myths, and I talk about 8 of them in my book, but it's feel the fear and do it anyway is the solution or the cure for imposter syndrome. And I'm just going to can I say bullshit on yours?
Yes.
I'm not much of a swear. I don't swear, but it is, because if that were true, why would such accomplished people like you, like Albert Einstein, like Tina Fey, like Michelle Obama, like Steve Martin, like all of these 85% of the people who are not known, right? Not necessarily known names, experience this. So certainly they felt their fear and they do it anyway. So it's not a cure. It's not a cure. And that is dangerous to tell someone it's a cure. And the reason it's dangerous to tell somebody any of these myths, either it doesn't exist, imposter syndrome isn't a real thing. What it does is the person that is experiencing all of these symptoms, the anxiety, the rumination, the feeling like they're not good enough. I mean, it can really lead to burnout. Big part of burnout is this overthinking and overdoing and overpleasing. I talk about a lot of archetypes in my book as well, all these behaviors. And so what happens is somebody says, oh, I did feel the fear. I did it anyway. I shouldn't still have these symptoms. So I'm going to push them down even more. Now I'm even more of a failure than I thought I was because I should have been past this. I can't let anyone know. And we end up just digging our heels more into that imposter syndrome feeling. There is also a danger in not working through this, in normalizing this and living with it. One of the dangers, look, I wouldn't call this a danger, but one of the things you miss out on is really your life and your dreams. Yes, you might feel the fear and do it anyway, but my guess is for most people listening to this, for every fear they felt and done it anyway, they could probably list one or more that they haven't, that they've stepped back with either a story or an excuse or procrastination or all these behaviors because they really didn't feel like they were good enough. They either took themselves out of the running or didn't put themselves in the running because they didn't feel good enough. That's a danger. But the other big real danger, when I think of the word danger, is burnout. Burnout is a big topic. We should probably do a whole nother segment just on burnout. But just to give you an idea, there's so many energy leaks that happen when we're overdoing and overthinking and overpleasing, overperfecting, all the rumination, we lose sleep. All of these just create this downward spiral and we start to feel exhausted, right? And the things that used to motivate us feel like work. And that positive, optimistic person is like, where is she? Where is he? What happened to that person? Their actual physical changes in the brain. And the further along that path, and it's so insidious, the further along that path you get, the longer it takes to heal. And some things actually can be permanent. So there are changes in the amygdala, that fight or flight part of the brain, right? And it becomes so activated and so on. There are changes because so much of our resources there that we're not in the prefrontal cortex, the reasoning and logical part of the brain, that it isn't as strong anymore. For public speakers, you want to be creative, you want to be innovative. You lose so much of that. So there are real dangers to not working through this.
Have you heard what noted speakers and readers are saying about Peter's book, The Captivating Public Speaker? A love letter to creating significant impact and authentic influence. If you're looking to increase your impact through spoken word, this book is a must-read. Extremely well-written, engaging, fun, and serious at the same time. After this episode, please use the link in the show notes to check out The Captivating Public Speaker on Amazon. Now, back to Peter and his guest.
I know some people say, fake it till you make it. Can that be a good thing in public speaking?
Yeah, I think it's funny. I've had groups and we've had big conversations on this, and people have a lot of strong opinions. So I'm going to just share with you mine. And that is that, remember I kind of alluded to this idea of a healthy zone? We're human beings. We have all these emotions. They're all wired into us. They're not good or bad, from shame all the way up to peace and tranquility. We are a range of emotions, and they're part of us. And as are other things like fear and doubt and comparison. They're all wired into our brain. So they're part of this adaptive makeup. And we go out into the world and we're meant to be adaptive beings. Something happens, right? You were planning on it. You were booked for a speaking gig and it canceled, and you were counting on that money, or you were counting on that to sell books, or whatever your thing was, or you're just disappointed. What happens is, in the healthy zone, let's just think of a circle and imagine a pendulum swinging, and you're rocking gently in the center, and something happens, or you lose somebody, you lose a job, you lose a person, you lose a relationship, whatever it is, it knocks that pendulum out, but we adapt, right? We work through it, we get back to but we do it as much as possible in that zone. Let me go back to the healthy zone so you really understand this. And I'm going to tell you where fake it till you make it comes into that. So fear is wired into us. It's meant to protect us. We do not want to get rid of fear. Fear gives us that adrenaline, that energy. Fear can be our great friend. It doesn't have to be the foe. Make fear your friend. So in the healthy zone, we want fear. That's a good thing. It protects us, right?
I agree with you. I tell my clients, label it differently. It's the same energy.
Yeah, or just bring it. I have a whole exercise I take people through with fear, and it is like magical. It just flips the switch, literally. There's doubt. Doubt is our great discernment muscle. If we didn't have doubt, we believe every real imposter, every Tom, Dick, or Harry, we'd just be like, here's my keys to the kingdom. So we need doubt. We need comparison. How do we know who we are if we don't know who we aren't? So as long as we're in the healthy zone with comparison, that's good. I want to see other people are actors, other people are speakers. They're good. In the healthy zone, that means that I'm like going, oh, I wonder what they're doing. I'm curious and I want to learn from them. I'm not comparing up or down. I'm not seeing myself as worse than. I'm not making that judgment. I'm not seeing myself as better than. I'm just comparing and kind of getting a sense of where I am. The reason I'd say that we can get past imposter syndrome is because getting past imposter syndrome, that picture at the other side, does not look like I have no fear, no doubt. I never compare myself. Life is golden. Nothing changes. Nothing moves my emotions. I'm totally in control. That's not what it looks like. What it looks like is a really healthy, adaptive person. When something happens, yes, they get a little bit, but they can get themselves right back into the healthy zone. They're not blowing things out of proportion and ruminating, and they don't sink into anxiety. So that's what that looks like. So fake it till you make it. Imagine what that looks like in the healthy zone. I've never done this, or maybe I've done it, but I haven't done it in front of this type of a crowd. Or there was just a great speaker that went on before me. How am I going to follow that up? I have such a different style. That person was like, his voice was hitting the back of the wall and he was all over the stage. And here I am, this kind of soft person. So a little bit of fake it till you make it is you put that cloak on, you do feel the fear, you do it anyway, you walk in, and it gets you to that place. You can already visualize that person, and maybe you even use an alter ego. You know what I mean? Like when I get up to golf, I think I'm Tiger Woods. I don't know where that came from. But you use a little bit of an alter ego just situationally. Where fake it till you make it isn't good is when it gets into that maladaptive territory outside of the healthy zone. That's where it becomes, I'm always faking it. I'm never me. And I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what the real Sheryl is. I had that experience one time. It was terrifying to me when I suddenly woke up and I thought, I don't know what my preferences are. Because I've always thought about it in terms of what does everybody else want my preferences to be? How do I fit in? How do I make them happy? Not how do I make myself happy? So I remember that aha moment where I dug in and I said, okay, I need to really get really in touch with me and who I am. So I have a whole process again in the book. I have over 20 exercises in the book and a whole very methodical process I take people through, from awareness to insight and then alignment and finally integration. And it allows them to get to this other side. And I have a program I do, a voyage past self-sabotage, and I take them in a very methodical way where one thing stacks up on the next, so that it actually builds. So we let go and we add, we remove and we add, we remove the stuff that doesn't work, we add in the stuff that does work, remove the self-limiting beliefs and add in beliefs that are going to move us forward, remove the self-talk, that voice in the head that is just non-stop and so critical, and put in better voices. Like you can have Peter in your head, have a good coach in your head, have a good best friend in your head. So we do that and it's just magical.
Sheryl, what can our listeners who might be experiencing imposter syndrome, what's the first step they can take to help overcome this?
There are a lot of exercises. I would say if you want to do something right now, as you're listening to this, the very first thing as you're listening, and I would really encourage you to train yourself, because you won't do this automatically, just get yourself in a physical state, a good, positive physical state where you're out of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight part of your nervous system, into the parasympathetic. That's always, always, always first. So it's deep breathing, really breathing past the top of the lungs. That shallow breathing actually ignites the amygdala, the limbic system, even more. because there are little nerve endings there that go right to it. So you want to breathe past that. You want to almost like you're trying to pull the breath into the base of your spine or deep into your belly. Breathe in slowly, 4 to 6, maybe 8 counts. I can usually do 8, but it takes some training. Hold it for the same number of counts. Release it for the same number of counts slowly. And then you can, wait, hold it again for 8. I don't usually do that. I do more triangle breathing, but you do 3 to 5 rounds of that and you immediately reset your state. And then the second thing is take out a piece of paper with a pen, not on your computer, hand to paper, because your intuition will come through, and write down all of your actual accomplishments. Because you see, imposter syndrome is this psychological pattern where you feel like you're not good enough in spite of or despite evidence to the contrary. We need to see that evidence. We want our logical brain to see it. So write it all down, every accomplishment, including the soft skills. I'm a great listener. I'm a great team player. I'm a great leader. I'm fun. I'm funny. I always show up for my friends. Write those things down. And then once you've written them down, read them out loud to yourself while you're looking in a mirror, and try to do that daily, even twice a day. And what I also do is I then type them into the notes on my phone, so that if I'm in a situation I have to remind myself, I go back and I look at them and I remind myself. And when you do that, it's really, really powerful. So that would be the second thing that people can do. The book has, as I said, 20 exercises, but Peter, people can go to my website. It's just my name, SherylAnjanette.com, Sheryl with an S. There's a quiz for imposter syndrome. There's also a self-sabotage quiz. I have a voyage past self-sabotage that I do twice a year that is small group and really powerful. So there are a lot of things that people can really do. And whatever you can do, I just encourage you to do it.
I will definitely have your website in the show notes. And where can my listeners get your book, The Impostor Lies Within?
Amazon is worldwide. Easy to find. Just type in The Impostor Lies Within. Then in the US, there are, I think, Barnes & Noble. There are many other bookstores that may have it.
Sheryl, thank you so much for being with us today. I've learned a lot about imposter syndrome and dealing with it, and I'm sure my listeners have too.
Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to tune in again for a conversation with another public speaking expert. And remember to use the link in the show notes to go to Amazon and check out Peter's acclaimed book, The Captivating Public Speaker.